This entitled mother-in-law is trying to get her son-in-law arrested. Why? Just because he won't let her into his own house. But the reason he refused to let her in will leave you shocked. Happy birthday if today's your birthday, and on with the show. This happened a long time ago, but after reading some posts on here, reminded me of this. When my daughter was little, before she started preschool, she is now 36, she would have difficulty breathing after visiting my mother-in-law's house or any place that allowed smoking. This was back in the mid-1980s, when you could still smoke in restaurants and such. My wife, now ex-wife, and I do not smoke. Finally, after one such occasion that my daughter was having problems breathing while at home, it was bad enough that we took her to the clinic. After examining my daughter, the doctor asked if we smoked. After telling him no, he asked if anyone in our house or extended family did. At that time, mother-in-law was a heavy smoker, and she was the only person that would smoke inside our house. We had friends that smoked come visit, but they didn't smoke in our house. The doctor explained that my daughter was showing signs of a mild allergic reaction to secondhand smoke. It was mild enough that treatment wasn't necessary, but we needed to limit or avoid exposing her to people that smoked. Mother-in-law and I had never been on good terms, but it got much worse after I posted no smoking signs inside our house. She saw them, but said it didn't apply to her because she was grandma. She usually avoided visiting when I was home, and my ex wouldn't stand up to her. Finally, mother-in-law came to visit while I was home. She came strolling in, puffing away. After I asked her politely to put the cigarette out, she refused, saying that she had the right to visit her grandchild however she wanted. I then asked her politely to leave, and she pretty much ignored me. Now, I need to add something here. I was raised to be polite and to respect others, and that was reinforced by my Marine Corps training. There are some exceptions to me being a nice guy, such as putting my children or wife in danger, as mother-in-law soon found out. Since she wouldn't take me seriously and refused to leave, I physically picked her up and took her outside. At that time, she was much heavier than me, but she had finally pushed me over my limits. I set her down on the driveway next to her car and told her to go home. I went back inside and locked the door behind me. My wife didn't say a word, but she was smiling, because she knew I could get away with treating her mother like that. Of course, that wasn't the end of that fight. Our neighbors had been old drinking buddies with my wife's parents, so mother-in-law stormed over to their house and called the cops on me claiming assault. It's a small town and I know a lot of the cops, but the two that show up I've never met. Since mother-in-law called them, and she met them in my driveway, by the time they started knocking on my door, they were planning to arrest me. However, I'm not dumb enough to open the door. After they hear my side, and the fact that mother-in-law didn't look roughed up, their attitude quickly changed. After showing my ID with the address given to them by mother-in-law, they stepped back from the door to talk a bit. A few minutes later, one cop comes up to the steps to talk with me, while the other one went to talk to her. His next question actually surprised me. I've had a few not so nice meetings with police. He asked if I wanted to press charges, breaking and entering, trespassing and assault, against mother-in-law. Tempting, but no. My ex is an only child, and I'm not going to forbid grandma from seeing any of my 4 kids, as long as it's on my terms. That is to say, no smoking. Instead, I said I just wanted her off my property and that she will have to call before coming over. Side note, after this incident, she no longer talked directly to me, unless I answered the phone, so that was a small victory for me. Relations with mother-in-law were pretty much gone. I rarely saw her, even though she also lived in that small town. But that's a whole different story. Entitled Grandma trained her daughter well, because after 19 years, I finally had enough of ex's entitled attitude and I divorced her. Neither ex or ex-mother-in-law no longer talk to me. No hurt feelings on my part. They don't talk to each other even. Something I had wished for back when my children were little. Can you imagine the audacity of this mother-in-law to think that she can smoke around this kid who has an allergy? Like, it's bad enough if you're around people who don't want you smoking near them because of secondhand smoke, but this is your granddaughter, and you don't even care that it has a negative health effect for her. You claim to say you have a right to see your granddaughter, and yet you don't care about her health. Last year, my parents asked me to manage their personal finances. I'm a finance manager. My aunt, my mum's sister, is a bookkeeper and used to manage their personal finances. And when I took over, it was a mess. Spreadsheets didn't balance, wrong exchange rates, wrong formulas, missing information. All these mistakes cost my parents thousands. My aunt was also the bookkeeper for my dad's business. At the beginning of this year, my dad asked me to do an internal due diligence before he took his company to market. I was unemployed and pregnant, so I had the time and was meant to not be stressful. I was assured that whilst he hadn't seen accounts since 2018, they were in order. Within seconds of opening up the accounting system, I spotted a fraudulent transaction. What was meant to be an overview 15-page report turned into a 220-page of gross misconduct, financial mismanagement, negligence, and fraud. Fast forward 6 months later and the virus hits. My dad has had to lay off 70% of his staff. My aunt was finally fired too. I have come in to sort out the finances. So a few months ago I had to say, "Mum, you are broke and it's because of your sister. The hundreds of thousands they thought they had is gone. The company is worthless and you have nothing left. One paycheck away from being bankrupt. I'm now trying to get the company back on track." As a parting gift, my aunt deleted 12 plus years of emails, bank statements, contracts, documents, financials, data, etc. I'm starting from fraudulent, inaccurate opening balances, and I have no staff to help. Data loss has a less jail sentence than fraud. So I pay all the business and personal accounts. My dad's company gives my mum a manager's salary to oversee my aunt's work, but my mum hasn't done anything for the business since 2015. All my mum's accounts are paid, even though her salary doesn't cover it. I leave my mum with a reasonable balance in her account each week and top it up if she needs. This is an entertainment play allowance. My parents rent a flat from my father-in-law when they come see me. I live 6 hours away from my parents and sisters. I sublet the flat when they are not here. My mum wants to spend a couple of thousand for scatter cushions. Yes, thousands. Are you kidding me? I'm struggling to pay their bills this month, and she wants to spend a small fortune on scatter cushions. Not even functional real cushions, but ones you throw aside to get to the real ones. She's only in the flat for 2 days a month, and the tenant couldn't care less. I told her there is no money for scatter cushions and it's not essential. She goes off like a firecracker, screaming, swearing and shouting, saying she has nothing in her life and scatter cushions is the only thing that will make her happy. I asked her if not having all her daughters and 3 grandchildren all in one place at one time is good enough. She said no. She wants the scatter cushions. She said if there is money for my dad to buy wine, then there is money for scatter cushions. My dad works from 4 AM to 4 PM while she sleeps on the couch all day. He should be allowed to spend his hard-earned money on a bottle of wine or two. A few days later, my mum has a proper go at me and my sister defends me. All heck breaks loose and my mum calls my sister the biggest disappointment of her life. My sister looked after my mum full-time for 6 months when my mum was sick until my mum recovered. My sister runs around after my mum like her personal slave, compared to my thieving aunt. Wow. My childhood has lots of memories of my mum's nasty temper tantrums. It was very traumatic. I swore I would never be like her. My husband grabs my 2.5-year-old, makes a dash for the bedroom. I grab my newborn and run outside. So my mum is now angry at me and refuses to talk to me because I didn't defend her against my sister. I'm sorry my newborn was woken by her screaming and started to cry. My baby comes first. My mum then goes off at my dad, threatens to clear out his bank account, take every cent. She has done it before. I have all these supplies to pay and literally just enough money. My dad tells me to change the banking password and I do it. A week later, my mum gets a call from a leech asking for money. She tries to get into the accounts and she's blocked out. She goes beyond mad. I'm on the phone to my dad and I can hear her screaming like a crazy person, swearing and calling me every name under the sun. Says I don't have any right to change it and this person wants money now. My dad tells me not to pay this random leech and not to give her the password. The leech would have been paid from my dad's dad's account. My dad told me to get hold of the bank and separate his account from hers on internet banking. She can then have access to her account, but not his. She says she deserves his money, and I'm getting in between their marriage. She goes crazy. She sends me, on the family group, a hate message. She's so angry with all of us that she didn't even care my nephew's other granny died. She didn't even send my sister or my nephew a condolences or anything. When the hospital called her to tell her Granny C had passed, she told them she doesn't care and to call my sister. So she knew the first message my sister would have got after hearing the news was her hate message. My mum called me dishonest and a criminal. She's going to sell her jewelry to hire a lawyer and going to get me arrested. The reality is she can't. No money is gone. In fact, there is more in their accounts than there was when I first took over. My dad is a second signatory and I have authorization from him. Yes, I'm the criminal, but not her thieving sister. For those wondering, my parents have decided not to press charges against my mum's sister. She literally got away with it. I have an 8-week-old baby and a 2.5-year-old toddler. My mum has taken herself off a family group where we post mainly family pictures. She told her friend she doesn't want to see pictures of her grandchildren. Yes, my mother wants me arrested when I have a baby and toddler. My mother is also aware if she does have me arrested, my career is over too. Welcome to the crazy. Man, that is some soap opera level drama there. I don't think I can handle that. Have you ever had a friend who starts telling you all their family's crap and you're just like, I don't know if you're supposed to be telling me this stuff. You just feel like one day you're going to be ending up in court as some sort of witness or something and you're just like, Your Honor, I don't know what I'm doing here and I don't think I should be in the middle of this. So for context, I'm a 16-year-old male living with my mother, father, sister 15, uncle and grandma. We live in a house, not an apartment, in a very small place, so we usually leave the door open. Also, we have stairs outside the building, on which we usually sit and talk or play, etc. In the house just below us is a family. There, the grandma, her daughter, and her 2 sons, who have their own children, a 17-year-old girl and a 15-year-old, and I'm friends with both, a 12-year-old girl, an 8-year-old boy, and a 2-year-old boy. They're all fine except the 12 and the 2-year-old. They're so freaking spoiled and I can't even begin to tell you. I truly can't stand them. As I said, our house isn't really locked and here it's freaking hot, so we don't want to lock it. And the 12-year-old usually comes to us and either sits on the stairs waiting for someone to come out and then proceeds to torment them into playing with her. She does this at any freaking time of the day, or even worse, she comes in our house. At any time, everywhere, while we eat, while we sleep, or just mind our business. So freaking rude, I can't stand her. My closest family all think like I do about it, because it really is annoying. But my uncle seems to see nothing wrong with it, and one time even managed to wake me up while I was taking a nap to go to the sea with the girl. Not only this, she's also very inappropriate. Asks very personal questions, like to my sister, "Why don't you shave your legs?" She does, she just didn't have the time to do it. Or to me, "Why do you dress like this?" I dress pretty normal, just maybe a little feminine sometimes. "Do you like boys or girls?" Rude. The thing is, her sister is not like this. She's actually nice and behaves like a normal person. In fact, I'm friends with her. Then comes their 2-year-old, the cousin of the 12. See, he happens to have the same name as me. For this particular reason, when the mother was pregnant, they would always talk about me spending a lot of time with him to teach him everything I know, help him, make him strong. I always thought they were talking about it a normal way. We live 10 meters from one another. Of course we were going to see each other a lot, and I wouldn't have minded to teach him stuff or play with him, since I like kids. But what they expected me to do was way more than this. After 2 or 3 weeks from his birth, they started giving him to me. He would cry his lungs out while in my arms, and I'd always end up giving him to his half-sister, 17-year-old. This went on all the way till now, when he is 2. I hated how they'd expect me to actually take care of him when they wanted me to, but never said anything too rude. just made excuses not to do it. Plus, his sister would hold him 90% of the time. Then, the kid started walking. He has some behavioral issues, might be autistic, still doesn't talk, only screams 100% of the time. He would come over to us, like the cousin, scream, and eat our food. My uncle would always give him one biscuit, but the kid eats whatever's on the table, runs around, places everything in his mouth, screams. He is a little kid, so he doesn't pay attention to stuff, and they often fall to the ground and I have to collect them all and clean up afterwards. Not only this, but my grandmother is very old and fragile. He doesn't pay attention to her either, and we don't freaking buy stuff for him to eat at all when he decides he wants a cookie. But I know he is not guilty, it's his parents. I already was wondering where the frick they were looking at for not seeing how rude their 12-year-old is. But this time, I know for sure they can't not see it. They're looking right at him. The mother sometimes follows him to our house, enters with him, watches him eat whatever the frick he wants, laughs and then leaves. Not even a thank you or sorry, just freaking laughs. The demon yesterday put in his mouth 5 cookies all at once. There was one left. I put the last one away. I tell the mother to please not let him eat every cookie, because my grandmother likes these cookies too. She looks at me weirdly and leaves. As always, without a word. The same day, I'm sitting outside of my house with my grandmother. They are too sitting outside of theirs. The 12-year-old sees me and waves, starts coming to me. The grandmother and mother of the 2-year-old point me to him and tell him, Go to him and play with him. Who the frick told you I want to play with them? They come, the kid rushes to the kitchen, I take away everything left on the table, and he screams. He does not cry, he freaking screams. The 12-year-old follows. Who told you you could do it? I never entered their house without being explicitly invited in. I take the kid in my arms and order the 12-year-old to follow. I take them back to the parents and, still politely but was very angry, tell them that I'm not a babysitter. My grandmother is fragile and it's dangerous to have them always around. Better if they don't come anymore. They looked shocked, but I leave before they start screaming. I run back and this time I lock the house. When my mother came home, they talked to her. She was on my side, of course. What the frick did they think she was gonna tell them? She said I'm right, grandma is old, and with kids so young, you never know what could happen. So they told her how offended they were by what I said about me not being a babysitter, and my mother laughed and said that if they want me to look after the child, they can pay me, and I'll do it all the time. They were so offended. They aren't talking to me since yesterday, not even the girls was friends with. Fine, I'm hanging out with others. They're incredibly entitled. Happy I don't have to listen to their bullcrap anymore. Not only should they be paying him for basically being a babysitter, that's what he's doing, but they're also eating their food. Food does cost money, even if it's just a cookie here or there. For some people, like, that's their one treat that they buy for themselves, you know? So for this little kid to just like shove 5 of them in their mouth, it's like, oh, thanks, well, if I want more, I need to go buy some more at the store now. But like they said, it's not entirely the kid's fault, it's largely the parents' fault for letting the kid think that this is acceptable behavior. Submit your story to be read on the channel at voiceyherestories@gmail.com and join our Voicey veteran community at r/VoiceyHere. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. Alright, Voicey veterans, I'll see you in the next one.